Okay, the process of coiling is going to require us to have long, skinny, snake-like forms of clay that we're going to blend together while they're wet. And we're going to go as far as we can with wet clay for as long as we can. That way we only have to use blending. There's an advantage to only having to use blending because it takes less time than score and slip. I would suggest using some kind of tool with an end like this. All right, so of course, let's get our clay wedged out nicely. Just to make sure we're in good shape regarding any air pockets or inconsistencies or anything like that. You can take your fishing line or whatever, cut it in half, give it a look, see how well you're wedging. All right, let's put them back together. Let's wedge a little bit more. Oops.
I have a question.
Yo.
So, do you want me to show it on my handle, like
Yep.
down here?
Yep.
Can you see like the bottom here?
Yep.
It like looks like there's like a little crack, kind of. Like I can't tell if it's a crack.
Is your clay bone dry right now?
Yeah.
Okay, so a hairline crack, there's nothing you can do about it. You just got to live with it. And if it's really small and it's mostly well attached, it should be fine. And then when you glaze, the glaze will actually you might be able to see it somewhat, but it'll handle it and it'll still be strong.
Okay, so I can't add slip or anything, right?
No, no, ma'am. All right, so I'm gonna cut pieces here now that I'm wedged. I'm just gonna cut little sections of clay, just so they have the material to work with. And something like that, whatever. Okay, and so we'll take these little sections and we're gonna turn them into coils, little bits at a time, a couple at a time. And so to create a coil, you're really just gonna wanna roll it out. It doesn't have to be perfect. I usually start by squeezing in my hands just to get it round. And so like when I squeeze it, I squeeze and I rotate and I move up and down a little bit just to get it kind of rolled out before I actually roll it. You don't want it to have huge flat spots on one side and others like having it turn into like a rectangular shape. You want it to be roundish. And then when you roll it out, you kind of like do light pressure and you do like long rolls. Like I'm not rolling the same spot over and over. Okay, and I let it like kind of roll on its own a little bit. And we're just gonna roll out coils, and we want our coils to be, approximately 1/4 inch in diameter. So if we were to look at the circle of it here, we want it to be a little bit smaller than that. Okay, that's a little bit closer to the 1/2 inch, maybe maybe 3/8 or so. So like roll them out pretty relatively skinny, but have them have enough kind of meat to them so that you can connect them. All right, so there's a pretty good coil, and then I'm just gonna make another one. So I usually make like three or four. I don't want to do too many so they get like too dry, but by the time you get to them actually. So just give them a little squeeze job in a circle. And guys, I'm uploading this directly to YouTube, so you guys will be able to watch it in real time whenever you need to. So I'm just going to roll this out again. Again, like light pressure. And I'm going like side to side with my hands, and I'm doing like long rolls. If I did heavier pressure or I did like shorter little rolls, then they don't wind up being round. They kind of wind up having like flat spots. They're kind of like I don't know, like a long, more rectangular shape, and that's not as good to work with in general. Okay, all right, about a 1/4 inch, about the same thickness. The thickness is most important. Don't worry about the length. The length isn't as important. If they start feeling a little bit dry, right, you can just give them a little bit of water and let them absorb the water. You know, it depends on how wet your clay was when you started and what's on the surface of your table and everything. So I'm going to make 3 of these. Light pressure, long strokes. Sometimes I'll like flip it just to make sure it's not getting the same exact movement all the time. I'm working my hands from side to side while I'm doing it. And getting it down to about a 1/4 inch thickness or diameter, I should say. And you can, like, as you're rolling it, you can feel how thick it is and where you need to do more pressure and rolling and where you don't need it. Okay. And you can make a whole bunch of these if you're feeling it and you're rocking and rolling. Just keep on making coils. You can keep them in plastic and they're good. Now I created a template, and this template is basically half of my shape, right? So imagine I double this, and that's the shape of the vase that I want to create. Okay, I just took a scrap piece of cardboard. Okay, I drew it in pencil, just basically the curve of the vessel that I wanted to create, and then cut it out. And so as I build it now, each coil, I can stack my template up like this, and each coil that I build, I can make sure that it follows the curve of my template. Okay, and so that's a really easy way to keep ourselves on track. Okay, I'm also going to use a banding wheel to spin it around. While I'm working. Most of you guys don't have one of these, and that's fine. If you work on your board, you could just spin your board as well. But as I build it up, I'm actually going to be able to hold my template to it and spin it to make sure that it's got radial symmetry. Okay, so I'm not going to work with a base in the beginning. I'm going to attach the base after I've developed a little bit of my walls. Okay, the anatomy of the pod, of course, would be the foot, which would be the bottom, the body or the walls, and if it ever tapers back, that's considered the shoulder, and then the part that goes up and opens up to the mouth, which is the top and the opening, is called the neck. Okay, so we have mouth, neck, shoulder, body, foot. All right, so I'm going to start making the body. And so I'm just going to take coils, and I'm going to decide that that's probably about how big I want the base to be. I don't want it any bigger than that for certain. And I take the material that I have, and I wrap it around as far as I can go. Okay, I can squeeze them together a little bit, and we will blend them. Okay, and so looking at it from the top view, you want to try to make it as round as you can. And in my template, I realized that it starts at a point and it goes outwards slightly up until this area. So until it gets this high, I want to angle my coils slightly out. So then I'll take my next coil and I'll just kind of smush it to connect. And then I'll build with my next coil as high as it'll go. And I'll slightly angle out my coils while I'm putting them on. And I can go around it and make sure that they all angle out slightly. And then when we blend them, of course, our coils will be already angled out, and then we can form them even further into the formation that we want it to be. Okay, but my coils are stacked up here. I can take my template and check it and actually go around in my circle, spin it around and make sure that it just makes sense with the form that I want it to be. And then I'll take this tool and I'll use this tool for blending. And I basically want to blend this so that there's no memory of there being two separate pieces of clay or four separate pieces of clay. And so I'm just going to take pressure with my thumb kind of up top to support, and I'm going to blend from the bottom up like this. And I'm actually, in the beginning, I'm just going to do one row. I'm going to do the bottom row into the second row, and I just want to erase the line basically. And if your clay's wet enough, all you have to do is blend. You don't have to score and slip. You can still be nice and strong with blending only if your clay's wet. And then I'll do the next row up.
Mr. Capusto?
Yes.
Faith is restarting her computer, so she has to leave for a second.
No big deal. That's all good. I'm going to upload this to you, or this is actually recording directly to YouTube, so Faith can go back and watch this as many times as she needs to.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, and so now I'm going back and I'm kind of blending those two rows that I had. And I'm just working my way up. And it's like, it's not a race, right? Don't try to do things fast. Try to do things little bit by little bit by little bit, just like pinching, just like, just like anything else in ceramics. And now I'm gonna work this top row, blending it. And I just want to erase all memory of there being separate pieces of clay. I'm gonna have to add a little bit of clay here where those connections were. And so I just want to make sure the whole inside is blended. It doesn't have to be perfectly smooth at the moment, right? But now actually if I do want to kind of reinforce it and make it smoother, I can go back in with my finger. I'm still going from the bottom up, bottom up, bottom up. And by going back with my finger, I can feel where there's thin spots and thicker spots. And I can actually compress it down and make it a little bit thicker where it got a little bit thin. I'm also using my thumb on top to compress it down. So I'm smoothing and I'm compressing and I'm shaping all at the same time. Or I should say forming. Forming. Okay. All right, cool. So that inside looks pretty good for now. And I got to do the same thing on the outside. Now there is a thing called exposed coils where artists leave these coils exposed like they are right here. And then they glaze that, and sometimes it can look cool. Sometimes they do little designs. They do like little twirlies out of coils and things. And so the inside is blended, but the outside is not blended. And that works. It's all sort of a preference if you want to do that. I'm not going to ask you to do that. The main thing that I want you to do is I want you to follow a template and then create a nice traditional piece of pottery with a foot, a body, a shoulder, a neck, and a mouth. Okay. And then so I'll do the same thing from the outside, and I'm just going to lift. So if you guys can see here, I'm taking like this, and I'm going to lift that clay from the outside, and I'm just blending it up. And notice where my thumb is. Okay, my thumb is actually kind of giving a little support in the direction that I'm blending it. And because the way that I position my coils following my template when I just laid them down, now when I look at it, like from this angle, it actually is already angled out the way that I want to. So I may have to do some slight pinching and adjusting with my hands, but in general, it's already following the form that I want it to follow, so I'm in good shape. So I just work my way all the way around. I can see where I need more clay, where all those connections were. Actually, in general, I try to stagger those connections, but it just worked out that way, that they're all in the same spot. But that's no big deal. We can add a little more clay here next time around. I'm actually going to blend this guy this way. We just want to erase all memory of there being separate pieces of clay. And if we do that, we're in great shape. Okay. All right, so outside is blended, inside is blended. And it's nice and strong now, and it's angled outwards. All right, look at that beautiful angle outwards to start with. Really, really, really nice, because now I can go around, I can pinch it a little bit and shape it and make sure that the thicknesses are even, and I can smooth it with my fingers. And I got this excess clay here, which is nice. I'll just use that for the very next blending that we need to do for the next several rows. And yeah, and there we go. Okay. I'm gonna do more coils, and I'm gonna build up more. And so I check my template, make sure it matches my template. If not, then I gotta pull this thing a little bit more vertical. It was kind of going out too far. So checking my template there, I just want to make sure I pinch it all the way around and get it to go a little bit more vertical. Just like a pinch pot, guys. Just shaping it, shaping it, shaping it. And now if I check my template, that's feeling pretty good right there. Okay, so I go all the way around, make sure that the radial symmetry is working. And now the next few rows are going to go slightly out as well. So I'll put it off to the side. You know, if I want to, before I put it off to the side, give it a drink. By the time I'm done rolling coils, okay, this water that I put onto my clay here will have soaked in. And so it won't be slippery. We don't want slippery surfaces. You guys know that, okay? But now I make my next bit of coils. So I just take this little, you know what this looks like? You know what this reminds me of? You guys ever get like those big chunks of mozzarella cheese with tomatoes? That's what it looks like to me. So start out in your hands, roll it. Squeeze it around in a circle a little bit. Get your area clean. That's important as well. You don't want to work on a wet, slippery area, nor do you want to work on a crummy area, right? So get rid of the crumbs, get rid of the water. And then I start rolling. Sometimes I do that. After I roll my coil, I just touch it with a little bit of water. Okay, so I'm gonna roll this puppy in my hand first, squeeze them. And again, by the time I get to this, that water would have soaked in, and then it won't be slippery and wet. All right. I'll do one more here. It is important, guys, to have coils that are the same size, like the same diameter. The length doesn't matter, but the diameter matters. At least as close to it as possible, because you don't want to wind up with walls that have like thinner spots in them where the coil wasn't quite as thick as the rest of them. So do try to get them down to about a 1/4 inch diameter if you can. Do the best that you can. I know that the process of coiling actually is a much more difficult one than it appears. Just to even get them round is tough, but you know, if they're not perfectly round, no big deal. But you want to be as consistent as possible. All right, something like that. These are pretty good. I mean, they're not the greatest of all time, but pretty good. So I got 3 more coils rolled out. I do want to show you something here. So, oh, by the way, the water I put on here is totally soaked in now. To me, this just feels a little bit big, a little bit bulky. If it comes out and then back in here for the shoulder and the neck, it feels like it might get a little bit wide. And so before I go any further, I'm actually going to cut out a little section and then combine them this way. Okay, real simple. It's not like some kind of like real scary process. I'm just going to take my tool and I'm going to go down, cut. I'm going to cut out maybe about that much. And also I'm cutting the part that already needed more clay. So I'm kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone here, because I won't have to fill in that extra clay. I'm just getting rid of it. So little chunk out, no big deal. Bring them together, and then we'll heal that joint right there. Okay, we'll just blend it the same way we blended before, because my clay is still plenty wet. And I'm just going to blend this way. I'm going to blend sideways on the inside here first. I'm going to blend sideways on the outside here. Make sure I get the bottom. That was a little bit of wetness there. That's not the greatest. You do want your the surfaces that you're working on to be dry. You don't want them to be wet ever. So if you need to, wipe it down. And so now, yeah, this feels a little bit more like it here. Okay, and then I'm actually going to go back and I'm going to just lift the same direction that the rest of the clay is lifted in. That will help make sure that my piece will be strong. Right? If all the clay moves in the same direction, it's going to be stronger than if it was going in all different directions. So, okay, yep. So that's cool. That works there. Form it. My angles are still good. And so then I just go and start building the next rows. And so the next rows do angle out slightly, just like the first ones did. Okay, I'm gonna just, what I do here is I just like press down and then just let it sort of step up to the next row. No big deal. Okay. I'm going to take this guy, and then when I have two coils to connect, I slightly overlap them so that I can like push them together, and they have a little bit extra clay in that spot. That's fine. Okay, and so I'm gonna just roll this guy around. The only thing that I'm thinking about as I'm doing this is slightly angling out like my template is shaped. Okay, you can grab your template and check all the way around if you want to. And if you got to come in a little bit or go out a little bit, do it now. So I'm actually just pressing my template into it. Like physically pressing the template into it. So it's going up and slightly out. And then when I get a little bit higher, when I get up to here, it's going to taper back in. And I still haven't even put the base on yet, guys. All right, so here, I'm actually going to cut off this last bit just so I don't have a big, like a weird jump up at this spot. I just want to start the next sections here on an even level. So yeah, and now I'm going to blend again. Right before I blend, I want to make sure that it's following the template pretty well. And it is. Okay. And then I'm going to blend it the same way. And so, although this is a very simple hand building process, the little things that you do or don't do make a big difference in the success of this process. So I'm gonna blend this end here. Okay, cool. And then I'm gonna take the first time around. I know you guys can't really see in. You'll see in the YouTube video. The first time around, I'm just gonna take the very bottom row and blend that first. I just want to get that bottom row, which is really important, blended first. I'm still blending up. And I'm supporting the outside with my hand. All right, and now I'm going to come and do longer strokes all the way to the top with my thumb supporting on top. Okay, I'm actually compressing with my thumb slightly. Erasing all memory that there were separate pieces of clay involved, right? We're making this clay appear and feel to be one clay body. Just making sure I'm getting the entire way here. And when I'm doing this, I'm actually going like from lower than where my new coils were. I'm kind of doing this to the entire length of it, or at least 2/3 of the length of it. All right, so that's feeling pretty good here. And go around and I can do a little bit of smoothing with my thumbs and just checking my thicknesses, right? Good for now, right? From the top view, it's nice to check radial symmetry and always fix that, right? Keep on fixing that as you go. Check your template again. Make sure that the walls are following your template. Again, radial symmetry is key. I'm actually like pressing my template in and just checking it, and it's making good contact all the way around, so that's good. And then same deal, right? As long as you can pick it up, then feel free to pick it up. Thumb in place, and I'm just gonna blend. And I'm doing like little blend, little like choppy blend things. I'm not going all the way up yet. I'm gonna do that on the second time around. But you're not gonna like just in one swoop, just like shoot, and it'll be blended. Just do little ones. Little ones. And if you feel a spot that's a little bit weaker or something, press it in together. I just felt one there. Wet clay, blend it. Wet clay, blend it. Leather hard clay, score and slip. Don't forget that rule. Very important. Even if you're putting wet clay on leather hard clay, make sure you score and slip it. Okay. And then I'm going to do up to the top here. Maybe even, in some cases, I might want to go downwards. All depends. You got to feel your clay. And give a whole, go the whole length sometimes too. Just checking my thicknesses in that area that I just finished. Feels pretty good. I want to make sure that if I have any spots that feel significantly thinner than the rest, that I can press a little bit of clay into that spot, because we want it to be consistent thickness throughout. That's very, very important. All right, guys, so class is ending in 3 minutes. Make sure that all of you get your photographs of your mugs or your cups handed in so I can grade you on them. All 4 angles, please. And start working on getting ready to go on coiling when you're ready, okay? You can work on coiling if you'd like to between now and next class. But definitely be ready to go for coiling by next class. All right? So thank you. This is going to be up on YouTube hopefully soon, momentarily, so that you can follow along again with your own process. And appreciate your time and appreciate your attention. If you have any questions, please bring them to me right now. Otherwise, I will see you guys on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good day.
Yep, see you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, take it easy. Okay, so I'm just going to give it one last pinch all the way around. I'm going to check down. I'm going to go back up. Okay, so this is actually like, very much like you would be forming a bowl from the pinching technique, or forming a pot from the pinching technique, just to check it, right? To check your thicknesses and to make sure that there's no weak points or anything that just is way out of whack as far as your radial symmetry. And I feel good about that. The other nice thing about that pinching job there is that it starts to smooth the surfaces slightly. We will do a little bit of paddling for smoothing and other techniques that I'll show you, but in general, right, we're getting ourselves set up in a really good position for a nice, strong, shapely pot. Okay, you can check your template and make sure that it follows the template all the way around. All right, it's pretty close right now. Can go back in, I can collar it slightly. So when I'm collaring, I'm kind of like pulling in and this way, just to compress the clay, make it stronger, and to lift it a little bit, because it tends to want to go out this way, the heavier it gets. Since it's being pulled down by gravity. And yeah, okay.